There is an invisible thread that holds your life together. You can't see it, but you rely on it every single second of every single day. It is the reason you stop at a red light at 3 a.m. when no one is watching. It is the reason you accept a piece of paper with a dead president's face on it in exchange for your hard labor. It is the reason you pay taxes to a government that is thousands of miles away. We call this the social contract. It is the oldest deal in human history. You give up your absolute freedom and your money. The state gives you safety, order, and a stable currency. It is the glue of civilization. But what happens when the glue dries out? What happens when you pay the price but don't get the product? What happens when the state takes your taxes but cannot stop the crime? When they print the money, but it buys nothing? History tells us exactly what happens. It doesn't start with an explosion. It starts with a whisper, a collective realization that the deal is off. And when that belief vanishes, skyscrapers don't just empty nations evaporate. We have seen this pattern destroy Rome. We saw it tear apart the Soviet Union. And right now, if you look closely at the headlines, you will see the social contract tearing at the seams in the West. Here is what should terrify you. The collapse has already begun. You just haven't named it yet. To understand why our current timeline is so dangerous, we have to strip away the philosophy and look at the social contract for what it really is: a transaction. Imagine a simple scale. On one side, there is the citizen, that's you. You provide compliance. You obey the laws. You serve in the military. And most importantly, you pay taxes. On the other side, there is the state. They provide returns. They protect your private property. They maintain the value of your currency. They build the roads, and they punish the corrupt. When the scale is balanced, you get a golden age. You get the America of the 1950s or the Rome of the Pax Romana. But historically, the state always gets greedy. They stop delivering the returns, but they demand more compliance. They inflate the currency, which is a violation of the contract. They fail to punish elites, which is a violation of the contract. They fail to keep the streets safe, which is a violation of the contract. We have explored the six-stage revolution cycle on this channel before. But the death of the social contract is what happens before the revolution. It is the moment the soul leaves the body of the nation. It is a phenomenon known as the Great Opt-out, and to see where it leads, we have to look at the people who walked this path before us. We often think the Roman Empire fell because of barbarian invasions. That is false. Rome fell because the Romans stopped caring if it fell. By the 5th century, the social contract in Rome was shattered. The wealthy elites, the patricians, had found ways to avoid all taxes. They lived in fortified villas in the countryside, completely detached from society. Meanwhile, the middle class and the poor were crushed by tax collectors to pay for endless wars and a bloated bureaucracy. The state demanded everything and gave nothing. Protection? The legions were gone. Justice? Only for the rich. So, the Roman people did something unthinkable. They didn't just riot, they defected. When the Visigoths and Vandals arrived, many Roman citizens didn't fight back. Some actually opened the gates. They calculated that life under the barbarians could impossibly be worse than life under the Roman tax collector. The contract was void, so the loyalty was gone. Fast forward to France in the late 18th century. The social contract here was explicitly rigged. The system meant that the clergy and the nobility paid almost zero taxes, while the commoners paid for everything. But the breaking point wasn't just money. It was the famine. The primary duty of a king, the father of the nation, is to ensure his people can eat. When the harvest failed and the price of bread skyrocketed, King Louis XVI failed to uphold his end of the deal. The people realized a terrifying truth. If the king cannot feed us, why do we have a king? The moment that question was asked, the monarchy was dead. The guillotine that followed was just the paperwork. Then there is the most modern and frightening example, the Soviet Union in the 1980s. Here, the social contract was purely ideological. You work for the collective, and the collective takes care of you. But by the 1980s, everyone knew it was a lie. The elites had special stores and luxury cars, while the workers stood in line for toilet paper. A dark joke circulated in Moscow. We pretend to work, and they pretend to pay us. This is the ultimate death of the social contract: apathy. The Soviet Union didn't collapse because of a foreign invasion. It collapsed because its own citizens simply stopped believing it existed. They stopped producing, they stopped caring, and when the walls fell, no one lifted a finger to save the regime, and they all made the same mistake. The same one we're making right now. When we analyze these collapses, a terrifyingly clear pattern emerges. The death of the social contract isn't chaotic. It is systematic. It follows 5 distinct stages, and once you see them, you can't unsee them in the world around you. Stage 1 is the breach. The government breaks the basic promise. Usually, this happens through currency debasement. When inflation hits, the government is essentially stealing the value of your labor to pay for its own mistakes. It is a breach of property rights, or it happens through a failure of justice when you see 2 sets of laws, one for the connected and one for everyone else. The citizen realizes the game is rigged. This leads to stage 2, the assessment. Citizens unconsciously do a cost-benefit analysis. May ask, I am paying 40% in taxes, but I have to hire private security because the police won't come. I have to pay for private school because the public ones are failing. And my money is losing value every month. The return on investment of citizenship turns negative. That triggers stage 3, the silent withdrawal. This is the most dangerous stage because it is invisible. People don't revolt yet. Instead, they check out. The rich move their assets offshore. The middle class stops working. A phenomenon we now call quiet quitting or lying flat. The black market explodes as people bypass the formal economy to avoid taxes. Trust in institutions hits 0. Stage 4 is the fracture. Society fragments into tribes. Since the state can't solve disputes or protect people, citizens form their own smaller groups for protection. We see the rise of gangs, militias, or gated communities that operate like mini-states. The central law becomes a suggestion, not a rule. Finally, stage 5, the nullification. A crisis hits a war, a disaster, a financial crash. The state calls for unity and sacrifice, but the phone just rings. No one answers. The illusion of authority vanishes instantly. Look at that list again. Now, let's hold a mirror to the Western world, specifically the United States and Europe, in 2025. The breach is undeniable. We are witnessing the industrial collapse pattern and the debt spiral happening simultaneously. The government prints trillions, diluting your life savings. We see politicians getting rich on insider information while regular citizens are fined for minor infractions. We have covered how the petrodollar just died on this channel, which was the external anchor of American power. But the internal anchor, the trust of the people, is dying even faster. The ROI of citizenship is plummeting. In major cities like San Francisco, London, or Paris, citizens pay some of the highest taxes in history. In exchange, they face rising crime, crumbling infrastructure, and failing services. If you have to step over needles to get to work and the police won't arrest shoplifters, what exactly are you paying for? We are deep in stage 3, the silent withdrawal. Look at the data. Labor participation is dropping among young men. They are opting out of the workforce. Wealth is fleeing. High net worth individuals are moving to tax havens or buying golden visas in other countries at record rates. And look at the financial system itself. The rise of Bitcoin and decentralized finance is, at its core, a vote of no confidence in the state's money. It is the ultimate opt-out. It is millions of people saying, I do not trust you to hold the value of my work anymore. We are even seeing signs of stage 4. In the absence of state protection, the private sector is taking over. Wealthy neighborhoods now hire private police forces. Corporations have their own security armies. Meanwhile, in neglected areas, local gangs become the de facto government, enforcing their own brutal version of the social contract. We are living in a society where the government is becoming increasingly expensive, yet increasingly irrelevant to the daily safety and prosperity of its people. So, what happens next? If the pattern holds, we aren't necessarily heading for a Mad Max-style apocalypse. The reality is more complex and perhaps more depressing. We are heading toward the Brazilification of the West. It is a world of extreme fragmentation. You will see a high-tech, high-security society for the top 10%, those who can afford to buy their own social contract. They will have private schools, private roads, private police, and private currency. For the rest, it will be a low-trust, high-friction existence. Infrastructure will slowly rot. Laws will be selectively enforced. Doing business will require bribes or connections because the courts won't function efficiently. The public space disappears. The danger isn't that the government vanishes. The danger is that the government becomes a predator. Desperate for revenue as the tax base shrinks and the debt spiral accelerates, the state will become more aggressive. It will become more surveillance-heavy and more tyrannical, trying to force the compliance that was once given voluntarily. This creates a feedback loop of doom. The more they squeeze, the more people opt out, and the faster the system crumbles. When the social contract dies, the society doesn't just get poorer, it gets meaner, it gets dangerous, and eventually, it gets replaced. The social contract is a fragile thing. It takes centuries to build, but it can be destroyed in a single generation. We are standing on the precipice. The invisible thread is fraying. The question is not what the government will do. We know what they will do. They will try to hold on to power at any cost. The question is, what will you do? When the state can no longer keep its promises, you become responsible for your own safety, your own assets, and your own future. The era of blind faith is over. The era of self-reliance has begun. Look at your life. Look at your savings. Look at your community. Are you prepared for a world where the contract is void? This is Economy Rewind. If you want to survive the transition, you know what to do. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Because history is moving fast, and you don't want to be left behind.